Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. It is 6:03 p.m. We have an announcement to make here pursuant of Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A S 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on number of people that may gather in one place, as well as Mayor Curtatoni's declaration of emergency dated March 15, 2020. This meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation. We will have an audio recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. First thing on our agenda tonight is general business to approve the minutes of the August 5th, 2020. Madam Clerk, could we have a motion, please?
You say that again?
I said for the general business approval of the minutes for August 5th, 2020. Okay. So could we have a motion from the clerk?
Yes, sorry, just cut out a little bit. In the matter of the August 5th, 2020 minutes, I make a motion that we approve them as submitted.
May I have a second from somebody? Seconded from Ann Brockelman.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes of August 5th, 2020 as written, say aye. Danielle Evans.
Aye.
Josh Safdie.
Aye.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. I'd also like to point out, so those are adopted. I would also like to point out this moment that Elaine Severino is absent tonight, but we do have 4 members here, so we do have a quorum, so we may go on with the meeting. There are no rescheduled or withdrawals. And the first case on the agenda this evening is DRA 2020-0134. 374A Medford Street. Is the applicant here? Rachel?
Madam, this is Charlotte speaking. The applicant is here. Rachel, you are unmuted.
Thank you so much. Yes, Chair Fontano, I am here. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So we just had a couple of questions. We did get some clarity, at least I did for right now, on why some conditions aren't printed out in our summary, in our proposal, what have you, staff report. And one of the things I questioned, I'd just like to know for my knowledge, did I hear someplace at one of the meetings we had that you're getting up and running, you're going to do your thing, and then perhaps later on down the road, if everything's going good, you're going to get in and nice and early and do some baking on the premises?
That is correct. I'm hoping to start production and retail at the same time. Yeah, and I'm hoping to do that as soon as possible. But yes, I'm hoping to start retail sales as soon as I start production.
And I was concerned with the hour that you mentioned you might be going in early and doing such a thing. What was that hour?
Yes, so I would be in there as early as 4 a.m. The fan would be on at that time. I'm sorry, by the fan, I mean the hood, the exhaust.
Yeah, I get it.
Yes, I would be in as early as 4 a.m. getting the oven started.
Okay, now tell me, I went by your property and I saw, looking at your property, to the right, there's it looks like a residential home. And then there's a driveway in another house, and you have property over you, correct? With people living in there?
Correct. There is no one living directly above the bakery. There is a shared basement space that I'm currently in negotiations with the landlord to adopt an additional pest control protocol for that shared basement space. There is no one living directly above the retail location, and the hood itself exhausts on the far left-hand side, but it is still, I believe, 15 feet from the closest neighbor on the left.
And so is that a temporary situation that there's nobody that occupies that second floor at this time? Could it be, is it rentable space?
No, there
You're a
is,
rent- Are you the owner?
I am not the owner. I
Okay,
am
you're,
renting this.
yeah,
There is, there are 3 units in the yellow house located at 374 Medford Street.
right.
The retail location was formerly a garage and the driveway. So there actually is no unit above. It might look like a story and a half, but that's just ceiling space above my drop tile ceiling. There's
Oh,
no one
wow. That's
living directly
interesting.
above
Yeah, oh, that's interesting.
this unit.
All right.
Diagonally above, yes, but not directly.
And I know you had neighborhood meetings, and I know you got a couple of, we got a couple of emails of support. I remember one was Mr. Chin, and I'm trying to think of Johnson or Johnston, the other gentleman maybe.
Yeah.
But what, do you think there's an issue with you baking that early in the morning and making noise and stuff? I guess that goes up to the licensing board. I don't mean to be a downer, and
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
going to not approve this, but and I spoke with Charlotte about this, and we were saying that it is on Medford Street, and there's a bus stop. It's a busy area, I get it. It's not a little dead end street or a cul-de-sac or something. But I was just a
No,
little
these are
concerned with the hour.
these are excellent concerns, and I will mention that I did work for quite some time at Sarma Restaurant, which is right around the corner,
Yeah,
which
I know
has
it is.
actually a larger hood than the hood, that ventilation system that is already installed at 374. And there are people living directly above Sarma. We didn't get
Yeah.
complaints about that noise. I have spoken to some of the people living above some yoga studio and the hair salon right there. And they've mentioned that it hasn't been a problem in the past.
Mhm.
I don't think it will be a tremendous amount of noise.
Is this new equipment?
Yes, the hood was replaced in 2015.
Mhm.
The
Okay. 'Cause this
the only
takes- I
other one
understand-
thing I will, oh, sorry, the only
Go
other
ahead,
thing I
go.
will add is that I do know that the upstairs neighbors use air conditioners,
Yeah.
and so their windows are not always open. I don't know if they're
Yeah.
looking to hear the crickets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they must have gone to your meetings and heard what you had to say, and they're not here saying anything to us. So, if they're okay with it, when you go to the licensing board, that will be their time to speak. But I just had those couple of questions myself.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else that had something to say about any particular conditions then? Because usually what we talk about are hours and how many seats you have in there. You speak about retail. Is that going to be retail within your facility, or you might farm some stuff out?
I am hoping to strike up a partnership, a more formal professional partnership with the folks at Neighborhood Produce, because they're open later than I would like to be open. And they definitely get an evening commuter crowd that's looking for things like bread and dinner buns. So there will be some wholesale.
Yeah.
I'm-
Is that across the street from you? Down the road a little
Yes,
bit near St. Anne's?
exactly. Just
It's,
up one
it's right
block
across from
toward.
me, Susan,
Oh, okay.
more or less.
Yeah. How they
And,
doing?
and they need a better variety of bagels.
Agreed.
You're talking to the right
They're
girl.
doing- they're actually doing really well. They've been really, really helpful during COVID, and they've really worked with the community, and they were like filling online orders for my 84-year-old in-laws who couldn't even
Yeah.
figure out how to order chop suey online. So
Yeah.
they've been good.
How many people
Yeah,
do
Josh
you
and
have?
Heather have been wonderful. I'm sorry, they have been so wonderful and so helpful.
Yeah,
Uh,
good.
Yeah, really, really great. Great neighbors.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Murphy? Ian, Josh, Danielle? Danielle, you're all set?
Yeah, I don't have any questions for the applicant.
Okay.
I did want to talk about the memo that we got from Rebecca Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
We had continued this because of the no conditions, which is standard. I understand that there's no drawings, right? So we don't, as part of this, we don't have to consider any like interior layout or anything like that, or signage, or because even the example staff report that she sent under the new format still had conditions about windows, things in the windows and signage. And I understand that staff has found that there are no adverse conditions or adverse like impacts from this use that need to be conditioned away. But I guess I don't know where all the requirements are in the ordinance, because the only section that's cited in the staff report are the findings we need to make, and those are generic under special permits. And I'm looking for, I have my big ordinance in front of me right now, and I'm looking for, where is it? The intent of the zoning district where the property is located. As you're talking about the small business overlay district, and I guess I'm looking for like where all these things are in here. And I guess in the memo, it also talked about how the hours for uses have been standardized across the city from the licensing commission, but I don't even know what those hours are. And
Mhm.
within our purview to, if we feel like there's, there could be an adverse impact from the use based on its location, it's within our purview, I believe, to impose, shorter hours or stricter hours. And I noticed that the other example in the memo was also construction, like hours of construction. And unless those changed within the city, our practice has been to impose smaller windows of time during the day and nothing on the weekends. So again, that's something that we would condition, and I wouldn't find that the blanket rule across the city would be appropriate for every location. So I guess it's just hard to say that there's no adverse impacts if we don't even know what the rules are.
Madam Chair, this is Rebecca speaking. I'm happy to address some of those questions if you'd like me to at this point.
Yes, please.
So through you to Ms. Evans, one of the points that I was trying to make in the staff report, and I apologize if it wasn't necessarily as clear as it could have been, is that this use is not actually coming along with any construction activity. There's no further work being proposed here, and the work that could potentially be considered to be done on this building would be considered normal maintenance under a building permit. She's proposing some painting. There's a little bit of interior cleanup that the use part of the code is not concerned with. Under the use section in chapter 9 for a bakery, cafe, or coffee shop, the requirements are that it meet with the purpose for the neighborhood, and then there is an additional purpose and intent for the small business overlay district. The only other additional considerations or development requests that would normally be associated with this type of use proposal would be exactly as you said, on an awning or signage, but there's no awnings or signage being proposed at this time. And also there is a potential set of extra findings that would be for outdoor seating if that were being proposed, but that's not being proposed at this time. If the applicant decides to come forward at some point in the future for those, we will obviously consider those, and those will have to be in keeping with the findings for those uses at the time. I do, just to go back for a moment to the building type, this is a kind of shop house type where the house is the residential space is set quite far back, and the brick structure that used to be a garage is set actually quite forward, and the existing hood equipment, it was like some of the internal bits were replaced while the previous restaurant was in place. But even that work is not being that's not being proposed to be replaced as part of this proposal.
Where would we find this in our book? Under what? What chapter? You said chapter 9?
Chapter 9 under use. Let me find the page number for you. Give me just one moment, please.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I think that's
feel
what we're trying to do, learn the new book as well.
it'd be- yeah, 'cause since I mean, we didn't live and breathe the ordinance rewrite. That would be you guys and the planning board. It was just sort of, foisted upon us, and we're trying to learn, and we can't, read, all 552 pages and have it memorized after working with a different ordinance for, a decade. At least for more than that for some members. So, I mean, just like citing where we can find these things would be really useful. Maybe repeating them if they can't be, incorporated by reference. Because basically, we as the board need to determine whether we think that the current regulations are enough, and that there aren't going to be impacts that need to be conditioned away.
So it's Rebecca speaking again. On page 428 of the use section of the code is the use standards for a bakery, cafe, or coffee shop. And there aren't, you'll see, for example, for the industrial use categories, there's quite a number of required findings on the same page for example, for a data center or for a moving or storage uses. The required findings are laid out quite specifically in terms of for the moving or storage services, for example, mitigation of any negative aesthetic impacts that might result, location of loading, trash, and recycling. But those are not required findings that the bakery cafe use would be applicable to, unless you find something internal to the project that you would like us to condition.
See, because I didn't even realize that this section was in there. Like, I didn't know that this use is called out and then has some standards that apply to it. So, to help us, get up to speed with the new ordinance, it would be great if those sections were cited in the report. I think that helped us a lot. But I mean, I don't see any issues with this particular proposal at all. These are more like theoretical questions, going forward. Just trying to, get on the same page.
Right, me too. That's it. I found the section 9, the use provision. I saw where it was, and then when I was looking over, because I went right straight across, and the way it said 9.2, I went beyond it. But for us too, to get a little help, maybe even at the beginning, if you could give us some footnotes or something in the report, that would help us. And like we're learning, like you said, Susan, that's going to go against the licensing, or if the sign comes up later down the road, they'll go to signage. So much of this stuff we took on all at once. And it just seems now they're going to be going to different places.
So yes,
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Rebecca speaking. I will absolutely take that feedback back and bring that to the rest of staff, and we'll try to find ways to clarify the staff memos to be more
Thank
helpful in
you.
the future.
I think, can I just see the hands? Is everybody agree with what I'm saying and Danielle saying? And Josh shaking your heads?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's what, that's what this planning staff wants. They want us to communicate with them, so we can have some smooth sailing when we have these cases in front of us. So if there's, I know we closed the public portion of this. If there's no more further questions from the board, can we go forward with a motion from the clerk, please?
Madam Chair, actually, it's Rebecca speaking again. I don't have it in my notes that you did take testimony and close the portion. I do apologize. If I missed something, Charlotte should check us, but I think that there are folks here to speak in favor of the project or to speak about the project, and I don't have it in my notes that you took testimony last time.
Well, we've taken testimony because Mr. Chin was here and the other person was here, but I'm willing to listen.
Madam Chair, if we wish to take testimony, I ask that any members of the public who would like to speak, please virtually raise your hand and we will unmute you so that you can be heard by the board.
May I also say to Charlotte and Rebecca and also Rachel Murphy, we're willing to hear if somebody wants to be on the record, but we're going to go forward with this, and it looks like thumbs up. So if you want to take the time, we'll take the time, but it's not necessary. We don't need more convincing. But go ahead.
Yeah, only if someone is opposed to it or has some grave concerns. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we'll just move forward and approve this.
Madam Chair, I don't see anyone indicating that they wish to speak, either in favor or opposition.
Oh, they're there for moral support, are they?
I think many of them are here for.
Little humor here, folks. Okay. So shall I close the public portion? I will do so. And seeing the public portion's closed, no one wants to speak. Ms. Evans, do you make a motion, please?
In the matter of case DRA 2020-0134, 374A Medford Street, I make a motion that we approve the request and it's a special permit. Is there a section? So there's no, okay, so we're a special permit incorporating the facts and findings of the staff report dated August 12th, 2020. And there are no conditions.
Second.
Great. Seconded by Ian. All in favor, say aye. Danielle Evans,
Aye.
Josh Safdie,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was unanimous. 4 people in present and 4 people approving. Congratulations, Rachel. We'll come by and see you sometime.
Madam Chair, apologies, I had muted her. Rachel, you are on.
Thank you so much. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. This is so exciting. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am absolutely tickled pink. Thank you. I can't wait to start baking and show you all what I can do. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, folks, so our next case is the Clarendon Hill. Let me get my papers here. Sorry about that. So the next case on the agenda is 34 North Street, Clarendon Hill, 40B 2020-001. Good evening.
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte speaking. Corey from the applicant team, as well as much of the rest of the applicant team, is online. But briefly, I want to do, if they have anything to say, they are of course welcome to, but I have a presentation to just briefly go over the conditions, the draft conditions that I sent you all last week.
Yep.
Give me one moment to share my screen and we will go through that. Everyone can see?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to, it's a short presentation, but I just wanted to go over, reiterate the goals of the condition list generally, talk about kind of the thought process going into the organization of the conditions list, briefly touch on the placeholder conditions that were in the draft conditions list, and then see if you have any questions that we can address moving forward or maybe address tonight. So I do want to note that the conditions list that you got is still in draft form. In addition to changes to the placeholder conditions, there may be additional changes before the final draft, but I will make sure that you are aware of what has changed so that you can have a more directed review next time. So as I've mentioned at a previous meeting, the goals of the conditions list is to ensure that what is constructed is consistent with what has been presented to the ZBA and with all city standards that are not waived as part of the waivers list. This is kind of the big components of this project are the affordable units, since it is a 40B, and the goal of the 40B is to create affordable units. That's both the number of units and the level of affordability. And then the public amenities that are part of this project, so the civic space and the public roads that are being built. Another goal is to further clarify the phasing of the project and make sure that as the project is constructed, all of the various components are built in lockstep, that you aren't rushing ahead on one thing while a necessary foundation for that thing is falling behind. And then the last goal is to confirm compliance with the requirements that cannot be evaluated right now. So for example, we require updated elevations once they get to the building permit stage, because there are some requirements of buildings that are not easy to evaluate at a preliminary stage in the project and are better evaluated right before they submit for their building permit. Those are the goals of the conditions. This conditions list specifically, because it is for such a large project, has been grouped first by what the condition applies to. So there is a set of conditions that apply to the project overall, and then each building, the civic space, and each of the 3 thoroughfares have their own condition list that is specific to that part of the site. This organization leads to a lot of duplication, where, for example, there's a condition that every single one of the buildings, there are 5 lots with buildings on them. All of them are required to submit updated elevations prior to getting the building permit. The advantage of having it broken down lot by lot is that the building permit for building AB can be applied for, and it's clear what the conditions are to get that building permit, completely separate from the conditions for applying for the building permit for building E, which might be built at a slightly different time, or for building D, which is built as part of phase 2. That's how the conditions are grouped generally, and then within those, they are grouped by construction phase. There are some conditions that are perpetual, that last for the length of the project, or the length of the permit. There are some conditions that need to be satisfied prior to the foundation permit for a specific building. There are some conditions that need to be satisfied prior to the building permit for a specific building, or prior to the civic space or thoroughfare permit for the non-building components. And then finally, there are some conditions that are required prior to the certificate of occupancy. The Inspection Service Department prefers that we front load conditions rather than having a lot of conditions at the certificate of occupancy. We try to put them as early as possible. That's why there are very few conditions prior to the C of O for any building, and significantly more conditions prior to the building permit. That's the general outline. Under the general section, there are also 2 other kind of triggers. One of them is prior to the first building permit. The first building, foundation, civic space, or thoroughfare permit. So the first permit allowing construction of anything on the property there are some conditions that need to be met prior to that, like filing the subdivision or finalizing the subdivision plan. And then there are some conditions that are required prior to the last certificate of occupancy. I'm still working with staff on defining exactly what that means, but that is generally the timeline. So there are 9 or 10 conditions that were placeholder conditions, and they're grouped into 6 categories. This is just a list of what those conditions are, and then I'll briefly go into a little bit more about these. These are the 6 conditions. The first condition that was a placeholder condition is about the regulatory agreement. A regulatory agreement is something that is required or necessary for 40Bs that is not nearly as common in 40A projects. The regulatory agreement kind of sets out all of the requirements for affordability and monitoring and all of these other things for this project. That is being worked on by our legal department. But kind of the goal of the regulatory agreement is to address the affordable units. The next grouping is the phasing of stormwater management. This was held back because the concept of it is not in question. We were working on the language and didn't have language that we felt was ready to be shared. But stormwater management will be required as it is for all projects. The next placeholder condition was about off-site traffic mitigation that was proposed in the transportation impact study. This one is tricky because this project is being built at the same time as and in close association with the Mass Works project for Alewife Brook Parkway and Powderhouse Boulevard. We want to make sure that the way that we require the proposed traffic mitigation is compatible with and consistent with the timing of the Mass Works project, because we don't want to have a condition that requires that the applicant duplicate any efforts that we or they have already done as part of the Mass Works project. That is that condition. And then condition number 28, it might get moved around, but the goal of this condition is basically how do we make sure that all of the public benefits proposed as part of the project are constructed. When the board has been reviewing the project, you have seemed to very much view it as one project that has many components that contribute to the whole, rather than reviewing it as 9 discrete individual projects that can be easily separated from each other. So we're looking at how do we make sure that vision of the whole being built is achieved. And then the last 2 are somewhat technical. We're just trying to make sure we're working on the language for how to delegate responsibilities for maintenance for both the civic space and for the public thoroughfares. And that, just like the stormwater management condition, is mostly just a question of figuring out the language. But we're pretty certain on what the condition is going to say, even if we don't know how it's going to say it. So, as I promised, short presentation. I want to see if you all have any questions for me or for the applicant. They are here.
Okay, thank you. Hello, applicant.
Hello, Madam Chair.
How you doing, Corey?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay,
Okay.
so everybody's on board. Corey, did you want to say something?
If I may,
Sure.
I thank you guys once again for hearing us. And thank you, Charlotte, for all the hard work you've been putting in. I would just add, we've reviewed these conditions. I'd say in concept, we're very close on almost all of them. We're refining some language with the city staff. And we're excited to get to that next meeting where we have that language to present to you. But in the meantime, we're here this evening to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Okay, board. Anybody want to start off and make a comment on anything that's yes, Mr. Josh?
Madam Chair, it's not a comment, but a request. Either of staff or Corey and Icon. During the various presentations, there were some helpful slides that were just a table of the variances being requested, and I don't believe we've received those digitally at any point. But it would be really helpful to get those because I feel like I need to review that alongside with the list of
Okay.
Madam Chair, or through the
Yes.
chair, Josh, are you looking for kind of a summarized version of the waivers list of rather than having all of the detail that it has, just like a sentence or two about each request?
exactly, and I'm sure that we saw slides during one or more of the applicant's presentations that did exactly that. I just don't remember ever seeing a digital version of them that I could, like a PDF or other version that I could review on my own.
The applicant and I can coordinate and make sure you get that.
That'd be great, thanks. And I apologize if it's already been sent and I just missed it, but it would be very helpful.
Corey, is that something, how soon can you get that to us?
May I ask just a clarifying question? Do
Sure.
you want copies of the actual slides or just the waivers list with the reasons to the right?
Corey, from my perspective, whichever is easier for you all to produce.
I'm sure we can send that tomorrow or
Great.
Thanks.
Ian, do you have any comments?
No, this is more to Charlotte. I see the placeholder conditions, and those seem to be really important, so I'm glad those are in.
What was that, Ian? Speak up, I couldn't hear you.
The red type placeholder conditions, I'm glad to see those because those do seem actually one of the more important ones, like stormwater. And I think in general, I'm paying more attention to prior to permit, because things like, lead or stormwater prior to occupancy, the ship sailed. You're kind of in, no, it's kind of a check that things have been completed by then.
If I may, Charlotte speaking, for the
Yes, Charlotte.
for the lead requirements specifically, it's actually outlined in the code when it's supposed to be required. So we've just followed that of requiring it both prior to the permit and prior to the certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, no, I figured that we're not really not really in our direct jurisdiction, that it would be picked up elsewhere. Thank you, Charlotte.
Is that it for you, Ian? Well, we can weigh in.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I agree with the general approach to make sure that every phase is complete, right? And we don't always plan construction that way, so it may not be the most efficient way to construct things. You might, for example, want to pour all the foundations first, things like that, but the goal is to have habitable, complete projects. So even though we're seeing this as one project, having those dwellings complete and habitable with their
Right.
own stormwater management plan functioning. So conceptually, I agree with that approach, even though there is some overlap. For example, the civic spaces, those are shared amenities. Right, so are those carved up too, Charlotte? I guess I don't.
So this is Charlotte speaking. The civic space conditions
like the park or the
So-
playground?
Yeah, well, there are a few civic spaces. So I've tried to make it very clear of talking about which lot specifically I'm talking about. So for example, the large civic space in the center of the lot is its own lot. It is lot D1, and that has its own set of conditions that needs to be complied with. Unlike buildings, civic spaces have fewer steps to go from conception to completion. So it is only the civic space permit. It doesn't have a foundation permit, building permit, certificate of occupancy. So that is one of the tricky but important things with the conditions is how do we make sure that those other amenities are produced as part of this project.
Yes, I agree. And then just one last final thing. You know how you do your staff reports and you have a locus plan, site plan? And I know that we're supposed to read this with the whole application and all the drawing set, but it'd be nice just to have a site plan like at the back, just like you have your neighborhood block plan in your other typical reports with a lots, D1, D2, E1. Just a key.
I can certainly send that to you tonight, if that would be helpful. It is in the packet, or it is not in the packet from this week specifically, but it is in a previous packet that you've received. But I understand that you all have received a lot of documents relating to this project, and it can be challenging to sort through all of them and remember where exactly you saw it.
But can you incorporate it into this document?
So I haven't thought about incorporating it into this document. So I guess I can go into a little bit about how this functions. So there are, in addition to this list of conditions, there are then 2 exhibits at the end that are still in progress. Exhibit number 1 will be the approved list of waivers. And that will be attached to the decision as an exhibit. Any changes to the approved list of waivers would be a change to the decision and would require the board's review. And then the second set of the second exhibit is the list of approved documents and plans. And this one is a little more tricky because we are only listing the documents and plans that we have already received. But a lot of the conditions of approval require the resubmission of various documents and plans as the project moves along. So if you go on up to the first page, let me skim for a second so that I can direct you to the correct number. One second, I know it's here. What I'm looking for is okay, it's condition number 5. So condition number 5 reads, any changes to the submitted application material listed under condition number 2, which references exhibit number 2, are subject to the state 40B requirements for how you revise a decision, which is the board reviews it. If the board determines that it is substantial, it requires a new public hearing. If the board determines that it is insubstantial, it's just allowed to proceed. But we have another sentence on here of the planning director shall determine whether changes designed only to establish compliance with one of the conditions of this comprehensive permit approval are considered insubstantial. That basically, the goal of that is to say, if all that is changing is the building elevation for building AB, because one of the conditions requires building AB needs to have the all-season lift, and that lift needs to be architecturally integrated, and the current building elevations don't show that, so they need to be revised. If that is all that is changing, that change does not need to come back to the board for review, because it is consistent with what you have already understood the final project to be. But if there were a change that the Director of Planning and Zoning thinks is not clearly part of what you all have conceptualized this project as being, the director could say, this is potentially not an insubstantial change and so should be reviewed by the board, who can determine whether it is substantial or insubstantial. So it just provides a pre-check before you need to review every small change that is made to a project this large. Does that help? I guess that doesn't directly answer your question of whether the map saying which lot is lot D1 is incorporated, but because it is listed in Exhibit 2, it is listed as one of the approved plans, and so is incorporated into the decision through reference, even if not copied. But I can certainly copy and paste it.
Yeah, we're going to see the staff report kind of as a cover letter, right? A cover, and then there's going to be tons of exhibits, and it's really just for ease of review while looking at it. And I did find the waivers list, Josh. It's in the August 19th folder. I don't know if that's up to date.
Madam Chair, if I may, I believe that waivers list is almost fully up to date. There is one expected change of a concern that PSOF had raised was about the neighborhood park permeability, which the code requires to be 85%. The applicant had requested a waiver for 55 to 60%.
Yeah.
And in discussion with PSOF, PSOF and the applicant have agreed that a waiver of 70% is acceptable and satisfies both of their concerns and needs. So that revision will be coming, but I don't expect any other revisions.
And Corey's going to send that out tomorrow anyway, right? She's going to send it to you and then you'll pass it on to us? The whole list, right?
Correct. The one I sent tomorrow might not have that revision, but it is in my notes of things to check for before we are ready for the final vote.
Why can't it be put on the list that we get tomorrow?
I will leave that up to Corey if they think that is feasible.
I think we can make that happen, Charlotte.
Perfect.
Thank you. Because that's what we're talking about now. This has been going on for so long. We've got all these piles here. This, that, this, that, this, that. We're trying to bring everything in and streamline everything like this beautiful list of conditions you gave us. They're all there, all in an order. The ones that are red, they're still working on, it's complete. Now we're waiting for exhibit number 1, exhibit number 2. Corey said she can get us the waiver list. I want it to be complete. If she needs a couple extra days, that's fine. And Josh, am I right by saying that? Because you're the one that requested it. That's where I'm elaborating. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we're trying to not have all these notes and papers all over the place, Charlotte. We're trying to bring everything together now. On our plans. Now, like I was talking today on our plans, I have the plans I have, I think, I'm trying to see if there's a date on here. I don't have the date stamp. This is another thing that we have to have these, who's to say what these plans are? Project number, I'm looking for different pages. Drawn, I'm looking for a date, no seals. Is something like that going to be printed out for us to review online? Hello?
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte. I admittedly did not get that to all of you. We've been working very hard on conditions and I haven't had a chance to fully compile the list of all current plans, but I will work on getting that to you as soon as possible.
This is the whole package. If we're ready to, when we're ready to vote, you know, if this stuff can be put together, I know the applicants, they're eager to get rolling on this, and I can appreciate that. And we want you to as well. It's a wonderful project. I've said this before publicly. I realize the work, the labor of love you folks have put into this, but I'm asking, and we're asking the impossible. If we're not being reasonable, speak up too, Miss Charlotte or Rebecca. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying what I know the team is looking for. So if that's something we can, the sooner you get that together, the sooner we can vote.
Understood, Madam Chair.
So, and I want you to speak up. If there's something you can't get to us or whatever, let us know so we can do Plan B or something here. We don't want to hold everything up. Josh has spoken. Danielle Evans, do you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, so I've been checking the city website, so the database, and just trying to figure out what are the most updated plans. And it would be great. So you see like the original submission, and there's like an updated submission, and then looks like the last update was on August 14th. And then there's one called updates for August 19th, which is our last meeting, I believe. It'd be great if all of the plans that are going to be part of the control set could be one PDF.
Madam Chair.
Is there any way that they can be combined? Because I mean, or maybe the titles of the plans could be more obvious what they are. Like I'm looking at like what's End Sustainable? What does that mean? Is that what this is being called, End Sustainable? I don't understand what half of these plan titles mean. And then, yeah, and then the Transformers, did we get updated locations for the Transformers? I'm already like losing track of time. Was that sorted at the last meeting?
There are, this is Charlotte speaking, there are updated locations for Transformers that we did not discuss it at the last meeting, but it was part of that August 19th packet. So I've been working on compiling that final memo or final packet of all of the most current plans and decisions, or sorry, I'm tripping over my words a lot. All of the most recent versions of various plans that have gone through multiple iterations. I want to make sure when I send it to you, it is fully correct, but it has taken quite a bit of time to double check all of that work. And combined with trying to prioritize getting through the conditions, it has taken somewhat of a back seat, but I will prioritize that this week and try to finish it up and send it out to you so you all have time to review the most recent plans, which you will all have seen before, but not as one packet. As for combining it into one PDF, I may be able to do so. My only concern is that it is a lot of documents. And so while I can try to group them into fewer, larger PDFs, I think it may be somewhat overwhelming to have a 500-page, I don't know how many pages it is, but it is over 100 pages of plans to go through as part of one PDF.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of the attachments are just one page. Like I'm looking in the new packet, so like civic space permeability, it's one page. Site-wide transformer locations, it's one page. Just yeah, if some things could be grouped, or is there like a index of all the plans? I mean, I see on the conditions list. It's so hard to find everything and know if you're looking at the most recent stuff. I know this is a Herculean task, and I commend you working your way through this and guiding the developers through the process. I know it's tremendous.
May I offer a comment? This is Corey.
Corey, please.
So I'm just navigating the same website you are, Danielle, and I can see that the files that are in the Clarendon Hill updates for August 19th are just a sampling of the files. And I think if you wanted to go back and see the bulk of all of the files in the way that I believe we will ultimately submit them, looking at the folder called Updated Full Submission is where you can see, you know, the more detailed drawings around by block of each building. I think that's what you're looking for, and
Yeah, I just don't know.
ultimately that'll get recreated.
I guess, yeah, so that's what I'm looking for, is just an updated, grouped, full submission. So I know I'm looking at the most recent plans, because that was the last updated full submission was from June. And so I feel like there's been a lot of changes since then, maybe. But that would help me to know. And
I anticipate we would recreate a folder like the full submission from June. I also anticipate combining them into one file would be very challenging.
or maybe just some of the single PDFs that could be grouped.
Yep, the sheets that are in updates for August 19th will certainly be combined into the larger sets.
Okay.
Well, I think the applicant, Corey, and I think staff has a better picture of what we're looking for. So, you know, go to your drawing boards and see what you can come up with, what's reasonable, you know. And I have a quick question. Is our next meeting the 16th or the 23rd?
Madam Chair, your next meeting is the 16th.
Now, are we tied into that date, or could we go to the 23rd? Would that give everybody more time to produce a better product? Is time help? I mean, I'm just thinking
Madam
outside the box. I could be wrong, you know.
If I may, I would suggest that we go to the 16th, and if you are all free on the 23rd and able to hold a meeting, we could discuss continuing it from the 16th to the 23rd if that is necessary. But I would not want to preemptively continue too far into the future and then be unable to discuss it at an earlier meeting. If we can resolve everything in the next week, there's no need to delay it beyond the 16th if we can avoid doing so.
Yeah, well, you're the lady. You're the one that's got to get this stuff pulled together for us. So, you know, I'm like we're saying, we're not trying to be unreasonable. And if you wanted the time, if you don't think you need the time, then we're on for the 16th, obviously. All right. So Danielle spoken. I'm with everybody. I always say it's the pleasure of the board. I agree with many of the points. I love the conditions. I printed them right out. I like them in hand. I'm going through them. I'm anxious to see the ones that are highlighted in red, what we're going to come up with from the legal department, the housing department. You know, it just seems like everybody's, the mobility, engineering, everybody's still got their hands in the pile here and they're all working. So hopefully we're going to get this and put it to bed. Is there anybody else want to say anything? No, you're all okay. You've communicated what you feel is best. All right. And Rebecca and Corey and Charlotte, your turn. You have something you want to say to us right now?
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte speaking. I do not have anything additional to add.
Okay, Charlotte, thank you so much. Rebecca, you all set, hon?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your input. And Miss Corey, you and your staff, anybody there talking besides you telling me something they want to share?
They're always welcome to talk if they want to raise their hand. I would just say, you know, if you have had any time to review the conditions and there's any questions that you do have this evening, we're happy to answer them tonight. So please let us know.
I personally, I didn't see anything. I think they're really, it's a nice job on them, I think. Everybody happy with the conditions so far? What's in front of you? Yep, they all seem, nobody's raising their hand. So I guess we're moving along. So there's nothing more to say. We'll close this portion of the meeting tonight and plan to see you and speak to everybody on the 16th. We'll be looking to see what you guys are going to send us so we can do our homework and be prepared. And if anybody has anything, they think of something afterwards, please let Charlotte know and CC me so I'll know what's going on. You know, we walk away tonight, we're going to say, gee, we should have said this, we should have said that. So if there's no further ado and there's no other business, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, first we need to do the motion to continue, and then we can do the motion to
Oh, I'm
adjourn.
sorry, I lost my mind. See why, Charlotte, I need you. So may I have, I'd like to make, somebody make well, I'll make a motion that we continue, well, the clerk, Madam Clerk, would you make the motion for continuance, please? I'm sorry, losing my mind here.
In the matter of 34 North Street, Clarendon Hill, case 40B 2020-001, I make a motion that we continue this to the September 16th, 2020 meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Ian Brockelman. All in favor, please say aye. Danielle Evans,
Aye.
Josh Safdie,
Aye.
Ian Brockelman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. All in favor, so we'll see you folks on the 16th.
Thank you.
And now may I have a motion for an adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded by Ms.
Second.
Ann Brockelman. All in favor, Danielle Evans, aye.
Aye.
Josh Safdie,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, staff. Thank you, applicants. Happy Labor Day, everyone.